Have you ever felt trapped? Like the walls were closing in and your own voice was the one thing you couldn't hear? That was my reality for years. I was in a relationship that started like a fairy tale, full of promises and grand gestures. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dream turned into a nightmare. The whispers of love became shouts of anger. The gentle touches became shoves, and then worse. I lived in a constant state of fear, walking on eggshells, trying to be perfect, hoping that if I just did everything right, the man I loved would come back. But he never did. Instead, a stranger wore his face, a stranger who chipped away at my confidence, isolated me from my friends and family, and made me believe that I was worthless. The scariest part? I started to believe him. I thought it was my fault. Maybe I wasn't a good enough partner. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I deserved it. The bruises would fade, but those words, those beliefs, they etched themselves onto my soul. Leaving felt impossible. Where would I go? Who would believe me? The shame was a heavy blanket suffocating me. The day I left wasn't some grand cinematic moment. It was quiet. It was after a particularly bad night when I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. The eyes were hollow, filled with a fear I couldn't hide anymore. Something inside me, a tiny, flickering flame I thought had long been extinguished, sparked. It was a flicker of self-preservation. I packed a small bag with trembling hands, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it from the other room. I didn't look back. I just walked out the door and kept walking. The first few months of freedom were not freeing at all. They were terrifying. The silence in my tiny new apartment was deafening. Every creak of the floorboards, every knock at the door sent a jolt of panic through me. I was haunted by flashbacks, by his voice echoing in my head, telling me I was nothing without him. I was plagued by guilt and self-blame. Why did I stay so long? Why didn't I see the red flags? I felt broken, damaged beyond repair. Society often asks, why didn't she just leave? But they don't understand the complex web of manipulation, fear, and love that traps you. Leaving is the first step, but the journey to healing is a marathon. I knew I couldn't do it alone. I was hesitant, but I finally reached out and found a therapist who specialized in trauma. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Talking about it, admitting the depths of the pain. But slowly, session by session, I began to unravel the knots of trauma and self-blame. My therapist helped me understand that what happened was not my fault. Abuse is a choice made by the abuser, and only by the abuser. It was a revelation. It wasn't about me being unlovable. It was about his inability to love in a healthy way. As I started to heal, I felt an intense need to connect with others who understood. I joined online forums and found a sea of voices all whispering stories similar to my own. Women from all walks of life, all trapped in the same cycle, all feeling the same shame and isolation I had felt. Reading their stories, I felt less alone. I realized my experience wasn't a unique failing on my part. It was part of a widespread, systemic problem. This realization ignited a new fire in me. It wasn't just about my own healing anymore. I decided to start a local support group. I printed out some simple flyers and, with a shaky hand, posted them at community centers, libraries, and cafes. I called it the Phoenix Project because we were all rising from the ashes. The first meeting, I was so nervous. I set up a circle of chairs in a small community room, wondering if anyone would even show up. For the first 20 minutes, I sat alone. My old insecurities crept in. Maybe this was a stupid idea. But then, one woman walked in, and then another, and another. By the end of the hour, there were 8 of us sitting in that circle. For the first time, we spoke our stories out loud, not to a therapist, but to each other. There were tears, of course, but there was also something else, recognition. In each other's eyes, we saw our own pain reflected back, but we also saw strength. We saw survival. We shared resources, we offered shoulders to cry on, and we validated each other's feelings. We dismantled the myth that we were to blame. We celebrated small victories, a full night's sleep without nightmares, setting a boundary with a family member, filing for a protective order. The group grew. What started with 8 women became a thriving community. We started inviting guest speakers, lawyers, self-defense instructors, financial advisors. We organized workshops on rebuilding self-esteem and navigating the legal system. We created a network of safety and support, a web to catch anyone who was falling. Watching these women transform was the most profound experience of my life. I saw women who arrived quiet and timid blossom into confident advocates for themselves and others. My scars, both visible and invisible, are still there. They are a part of my story. But they no longer define me. They are not symbols of weakness. They are reminders of my strength, of what I survived. The pain I endured has been transformed into purpose. Speaking out, helping others, has been the most powerful form of healing I could have ever imagined. My voice, once silenced, is now used to amplify the voices of others. If you are listening to this and my story resonates with you, please know this: you are not alone. What happened to you is not your fault. You are worthy of love, respect, and safety. Reaching out for help is a sign of incredible strength, not weakness. There are people who want to help you, who will believe you, and who will walk with you on your path to healing. Your story matters, and your future can be so much brighter than your past. The first step is the hardest, but it's the most important one you'll ever take. You can rise from the ashes, too. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please know there is help available. We'll link some resources in the description below. If this video resonated with you, please consider sharing it. You never know who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of hope and resilience. Take care and be safe.